About Magic, they are still cheering for me. There's still standings.
Hey party people, welcome back to coverage of Mythic Championship number 3. I'm Maria, that's day 9.
It's me.
And some really cool stuff shaping up for our top 4. We've got Shahar Shenhar, Brad Nelson, Kai Buda locked. I mean, you couldn't have written it up any better. It's really awesome stuff.
It's always spectacular to see someone go to lowers in their very first game and then win out all day long. And it's not the only time it can happen, too. This very next match of Lee Shi Tian versus Matias Leveratto could be Lee Shi Tian making his way all the way through lowers with his Azorius aggro deck.
Let's take a look at our brackets and take a look at the upper bracket to kick things off with us here for what we saw earlier this morning, the journey of all of our players to get to where they are today. You can see there in round 3, Shahar Shenhar and Brad Nelson locking up their spots there in the top 4, but a bunch of amazing stories with throughout this entire bracket. Advancing to top 4, there you go, Shahar Shenhar, Brad Nelson, Kai Buda, one of the GOATs, the greatest of all time. But Shahar Shenhar, Brad Nelson, also huge names in the game in the top 4. Let's take a look at the lower bracket as well.
I really think there is a lot of pressure on Matias Leveratto. You'll see him showing up nowhere in the lower bracket except at the very end. Lee Shi Tian has gone win, 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 win all the way through lowers against difficult opponents and is now one game away. And momentum, mindset, these things really matter at tournaments. I can't stress this enough. If you're just sitting at home playing Magic and you're feeling a little grumpy and bummed out, you just stop playing for the day. If you're Matias Leveratto, you just suffered kind of a bitter loss to Brad Nelson in upper brackets, and guess what? You now have to get focused and play one of your worst matchups. And this is such an important match for both of these players. I mean, this would be an amazing story for Lee Shi Tian, recently inducted into the Hall of Fame, joining 3 other absolute legends. But, I mean, for Mr. Leveratto, this would also be such a win. Coming from the Magic the Gathering Arena Mythic qualifiers to get to top 4, I mean, what a story. And
just an amazing run by him. Thousands of players to get to where he is today, and now facing down one of the greats in the Lee Shi Tian Hall of Famer. And, you know, this kid from Argentina, he's like, all right, here I am. Here's my big moment. Welcome, Paul Chian, by the way, to the desk. One more match to go, Paul.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I think he's actually had to wait quite a long time to actually get to play again after that heartbreaking loss to Brad Nelson. Yeah. And, you know, kind of looking at how the matchup shook out, and he was thinking to himself, you know what, I really hope Lee Shi Tian loses, because this is going to be a really, really tough matchup for the Simic Nexus deck.
Well, we've pretty much just been seeing unfavored matchups going the way of the unfavored deck. I mean, the level of play matters. I mean, all this commentary we give about which one generally has favoritism in the matchup, it really is so heavily influenced by how you pilot those decks.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, given that it's standard, when we say something is favored or unfavored, we're not talking about extremely polarized matchups. We're talking about 60-40 matchups. So even if you're unfavored, you can still certainly pull out the win.
Taking a look at Lee Shi Tian's aggro deck, it is essentially white weenie. We have Sky Marcher Aspirant, Legion's Landing, Dauntless Bodyguard. We have a pair of Snubborn Sentries and 4 Law Rune Enforcers. We have a huge number of 1-mana creatures, and this is really the big key. Can you get a few of those down, get them to stick, maybe get a Venerated Loxodon out early? More importantly, flipping Legion's Landing to be able to generate lots and lots of tokens. And not pictured here in the sideboard, counter spells.
Yeah, and the thing that Lee Shi Tian really wants to do in this matchup is just get out aggressive and get out early. He wants a ton of cheap creatures and basically pressure Leveratto's life total before he can get established with Wilderness Reclamation, Root Snares, Tamios, and of course Nexus of Fate. The 2 cards that I want to talk about are those Baffling Ends. That's actually going to be a completely dead card in game 1 because Leveratto has no mana creatures in his deck.
And this Tomic Distinguished Advocate does have a very fringe interaction with the solo Nissa Who Shakes the World that is in Matias Leveratto's deck. Notably, though, we got a chance to look at the White Weenie deck. Look at, you know, where's the early game? How do you stay alive? Well, you don't really, Paul. You have a blink of an eye. You have 4 Root Snares. I mean, really, it's kind of hidden the tool that you have against an aggro deck, and that is the 3 copies of this Blast Zone.
Yeah, there's several really important aspects of this matchup. Of course, for number 1, Leveratto wants to go first. He wants to make sure that he has time to kind of get established here. He wants to basically ideally get Growth Spiral into Wilderness Reclamation turn 3. If he gets that draw, the white aggressive deck is going to have a really tough time dealing with it because Lee Shi Tian actually shaved on Conclave Tribunals. He only has 2 ways to deal with Reclamation. So if he can get a Reclamation onto the board, draw one of those Root Snares, he can potentially win. And like the Blast Zone that you alluded to, Sean, Blast Zone is extremely powerful in this matchup. The mono white aggressive deck has 18 1-drops in the deck. So if you draw Blast Zone, you're likely going to get 2 or 3 cards.
That said, the story is very basic. Can the white aggro deck blast down the Simic Nexus deck before anything can get off the ground? Because really there's nothing going on for Simic Nexus for the first few turns. Because the whole point of the deck is, if I don't need to keep my health up because I'll be looping turns infinitely, let's just not worry about our health. This is the one deck that gets a little bit too fast for the white decks to handle.
Yeah, it's extremely crucial for Leveratto to try to win that game 1 because things get much worse after sideboard once Lee Shi Tian gets to kind of dig into his sideboard for those blue cards. Cards like Teferi Time Raveler and Disdainful Stroke are extremely impactful in the matchup.
There's a lot of 4 cost and greater targets for that Disdainful Stroke. We got the chance to talk to Matias Leveratto. Let's hear from him about how his mindset's doing going into this final match.
I am Matias Leveratto. I come from Argentina, Buenos Aires. Every round was pretty stressful because there are a lot of great players here, so you don't have an easy match. I like my deck. I feel confident playing it. I was trying to stay focused and do my best. The chances are there, so I will try to go to win it all.
And it is going to come down, very much so, to how well Mattias is able to navigate those tricky early game situations where he's willing to give up points of life, and probably most importantly, what the timing of those Root Snares are going to be.
Yeah, one thing with Leveratto, he said he's very comfortable with this deck. What it sounds like is, he has a lot of experience playing this deck, and there's something to be said for that. This guy is a master of playing Wilderness Reclamation, Simic Nexus. So, that's going to come a long way. That's going to help you kind of fight those jitters because, this is, frankly speaking, the biggest match of his Magic career.
And it is the final match of the day on day 2. We already know 3 players that will be advancing to day 3 to battle in top 4. Who will be the last player? Let's find out.
Thanks, sweet baby day 9. All right, let's welcome these players to the stage. First up, with 5 Pro Tour top 8s in a 4-year span from 2012 to 2016, from Hong Kong, Lee Shi Tian. And the gentleman from Argentina, the newcomer to the international Magic scene with the Simic Nexus deck, it's Matias Leveratto. Let's head over to Alias V and Cedric Phillips in the booth.
Thank you very much, Becca. I'm Alias, this is Cedric, and we have the pleasure of bringing you the final game of Day 2 of the Mythic Invitational in Las Vegas. We're going to see Matias Leveratto and Lee Shi Tian, Simic Nexus versus Azorius Aggro. This is probably the toughest matchup for the Simic Nexus deck.
It certainly can be. Here's what I'll say. Before we even get the cards or matchups for Matias Leveratto, it was a very difficult loss against Brad Nelson. I think if you ask him, he'd say he didn't play that game as well as he would have liked to. However, that match is in the past. The match that's in front of him is the present, and that's the only thing that matters right now. He's been doing so well in this tournament that he actually had a loss to give. I'm sure the loss that he did give isn't the way he wanted to give it.
Oh, yeah.
So, if you're Matias, the thing you think about right now is, you know what? One turn at a time, one game at a time, one everything at a time. Don't get too far ahead of himself. Is this matchup difficult? Absolutely. Is it winnable? It absolutely is. So don't get too far ahead of yourself. Just play the Magic you've played all weekend long, and you give yourself the best opportunity to win.
Yeah, just treat it like any other Magic game, but, also bear in mind that there's a prize pool of $750,000 on the line.
Right, that
Yeah,
thing.
just slight minor detail. We see a 1-land keep, but drawing the Hallowed Fountain off the top for Lee Shi Tian. Mattias keeping a 3-lander, 2 Memorial to Genius, Breeding Pool, Narset, Nexus of Fate ×2, and a Root Snare. And there's Wilderness Reclamation as well, so he's got a lot of his key pieces set up in hand. But we do see the 3rd land for Lee Shi Tian, as well as Venerated Loxodon in hand.
So for Lee Shi Tian, this is, I'm going to simplify things a little bit here for just what he needs to do, which is play his creatures as quickly as possible and try to kill his opponent as fast as possible. There are no sweeper effects to worry about. There's none of that nonsense he's had to play against Esper all weekend long or Mono Red with its interaction. Don't worry about any of that. Deal as much damage as quickly as you can and get the game over with as fast as you can. The only card you really have to concern yourself with is Root Snare, which you can't do anything about anyway. So just try to kill your opponent as fast as possible and hope that Mattias' draw doesn't really come together all that well.
So Narset digging through the deck and finding another Wilderness Reclamation. There is 1 Root Snare in hand, so he will be able to keep his life total safe for 1 turn at least. He's going to try and find the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Root Snare as quick as possible. Narset will be able to help do that unless Lee Shi Tian decides to take that Planeswalker down.
And of course, if Lee Shi Tian does elect to take care of Narset, that's 2 creatures going that way because there's no Benalis Marshal to play this turn. So if you decide to take a turn off to take care of Narset, you've got to do it with 2 creatures as opposed to 1, which is essentially a Root Snare-esque effect. One other thing I do want to note, that Mattias' draw has come together pretty well here. Next turn, we're almost certainly going to see a copy of Wilderness Reclamation, and then that's going to allow him to untap all of his lands, and depending on what his draw step is or what Narset yields, do even more. So his draw, especially because he was on the play this game, has come together absolutely beautifully.
Can I just say I love this? I love when a Venerated Loxodon hits 5 things on the board, puts a 1/1 counter on each of them, and now it's going to just be a case of go sideways and swing, and let's hope there's no Root Snares in the way.
And what I do like here from Lee is that he just said, you know what, next turn I can present lethal. The attack next turn is I believe 17 points of damage. And with this Breeding Pool going to have to enter the battlefield untapped, it's going to be a lethal attack. So he gets to present lethal every single turn now and simply say, you better have Root Snare, you better have Root Snare again, you better have Root Snare again. However, Mattias' draw, again, has come together beautifully. There's Wilderness Reclamation. You see the Root Snare in hand. So now that means, okay, I get to buy another turn. Then after that, we could see another Wilderness Reclamation come down, untap all of the mana, play Nexus of Fate, and then start to go absolutely nuts.
Alrighty, let's see. We will see a Root Snare here, for sure.
It was actually an attack for 19.
19?
My white combat math is a little off. I apologize.
Math is for blockers anyway, and there aren't any at this point. So we will see the Root Snare fired off because that's way too much damage for Mattias to endure. And he's going to hope like heck that he can find more of them.
Well, there's a really nice thing that's kind of going on here, too, as you're going to see Lee play History of Benalia, and that, I mean, it's beyond lethal at this point. So let's say, for example, Mattias draws a copy of Tamiyo, can get Root Snare back from the graveyard. Of course, Narset is in 1 counter, so can't really do anything with that. Callous Dismissal isn't going to do a ton in this situation either, so we might see Wilderness Reclamation untap twice, Nexus of Fate, let's take some more turns. And I think that's the avenue that gets him closer and closer to victory at this stage. And he's a Simic Nexus player. I'm sure he knows that.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure he knows that. The more time he can spend on his side of the board, the better for him and his face currently. Jace hanging out there, cowering underneath that hood.
Also got to remember, too, the only way that Lee is going to get another turn is either if he's attacking for lethal or if Mattias has found a Root Snare. So ideally, Mattias is going to take the rest of the turns of this game, and we're going to have to find out. Here's the first Nexus, Alias.
All right, what are we drawing? What we gonna find? What we gonna find? Let's see. It is a Breeding Pool. Nope, that's not it.
That's not the best draw, obviously. You're looking for Root Snare or Tamiyo. Yeah, but it is extra mana, and what that equates to is actually 3 additional mana. 1 on your main phase, 1 for Wilderness Reclamation number 1, 1 for Wilderness Reclamation number 2. So lands aren't the worst thing in the world right now, and because there are 2 Wilderness Reclamations, Chemister's Insight works itself into the equation now.
So we're going to see Callous Dismissal bringing Narset back to Mattias' hand.
Like that play a lot.
I do too. He's going to play this untapped, pinging himself in the face for 2. And Narset down again. Help me, is probably what Mattias is thinking. Please, Narset, find me a Root Snare or a Tamiyo. What is it? It's an opt? All right. That can help dig.
Yeah, there are so few misses right now because, okay, 2 Wilderness Reclamation activations, that's 10 mana. Let's -7 for Nexus of Fate. That means there's 3 mana left over. That means there's the ability to play Growth Spiral and Opt as well. So that means you get to see a lot of cards going into your next turn, and you also get another activation of Narset. So This is actually a really good spot for Matias Leveratto. Even though it didn't look like it to start, he gets to see so many cards.
He's going to go digging through his library like it's nobody's business. I can imagine this little 1/1 token on his side of the board going, please don't let them attack. Just like quivering.
Another Nexus of Fate means he gets to kind of do this again. He looks very calm and
Oh,
composed.
there's a
Cameo is absolutely what the doctor ordered. You're also going to get another Narset activation here. One thing I know that Paul and Sean said in the pregame was that this is a pretty bad matchup. And I agree with that if Matias is on the draw. He was on the play this game. If he was on the draw this game, none of this may have even been possible. So this is huge in game number 1 that he got to go first because he gets to do his thing. And I seriously don't think that Lee is going to get another turn.
I don't think so either. I think it's very much Matias's game to lose here. Ignore this side of the battlefield that we see. Ignore all these little tapped white weenie creatures. They're not very weenie at the moment, but yeah. Matias just has to string together as many Nexus of Fates as possible, get those root snares just in case, and do his best not to let Lee Shi Tian get another turn.
Now, the other thing to keep in mind right now, too, is that because Tamio's on the battlefield, that means that if we go back to Lee, he's going to get root snared.
Yep.
So that means that no matter what happens, even if Matias somehow fizzles out with all these Chemisters insights and everything that's going on, Matias is going to fog and get another chance at it in case everything goes wrong.
Lee Shi Tian just shaking his head in disbelief. He's like, come on.
Oh,
there's a root snare
in hand.
All right. All right. So while all this is going on, what is the actual way for Matias to win the game?
So the way to win the game is, this 1/1 knucklehead, this army token. You can get Callisto's Missile back from your graveyard via Tamio, bounce that History Banale Soldier token. All of Lee's creatures are tapped at this stage of things. You've just found another copy of Nexus of Fate, and eventually you can just start attacking. You can see Lee in the bottom left-hand corner of our screen. He's helpless.
Yeah.
He can't do anything, and he knows he can't do anything, so he just needs everything to go wrong. And when this deck is going like this with 2 Wilderness Reclamations, almost nothing can go wrong.
Too right you are, Cedric, and I think we've all been in this position if we've played best of 3. Nexus of Fate just doing what it does best. Never letting you have a turn ever again. Wilderness Reclamation untapping all the mana.
Well, Wilderness Reclamation is just so ridiculous in multiples, and now that he's able to find land drops as well, it means you're generating so much mana. You can basically call every land an additional 3 mana. For you old school Magic players out there, we call that Black Lotus, and this is Black Lotus on repeat because it's not a one-time use artifact, and now these root snares are essentially additional copies of Nexus of Fate. Lee has no interaction for that, so Lee just has to sit here and hope that, well, I don't know what to hope for.
I don't know what can go wrong from this position, honestly.
I really don't either.
Usually when I'm sitting in this position that Lee Shi Tian's in, I'm just like, all right, game 2, let's go.
Yep. And
I want to be on the play. I want to kill you by turn 4.
It may come to that, truth be told. It really may come to that because Lee is an experienced player. He's a Hall of Famer. He's got multiple Pro Tour top 8s. He's played decks like this before himself. He knows the writing is on the wall sometimes. And at this stage, again, he's just going to concede the game. He can't get out of it. It was a beautiful draw. Being on the play for Matias was huge there.
Yes, it was indeed. So, sideboard plans, like you mentioned, like Paul mentioned, the Baffling End doesn't have any targets. That's going to go out. We're going to bring in some... What are we bringing in?
Well, we're going to bring in the blue cards, but I do want to actually take a step back and kind of peel the lens back a little bit here because if you think of Azorius aggro, let's call it 2 or 3 months ago, that deck had Negate, it had Disdainful Stroke, it had Spell Pierce, it had multiple combinations of counterspells, and even an additional blue land on the sideboard to help facilitate those counterspells. You're not going to find an additional blue land on the sideboard, and the reason for that is because I'm not going to say counterspells with an S, I'm going to say counterspell singular, because there's only a Disdainful Stroke. So that's actually bad news for Lee because he probably didn't expect a ton of this deck. Now, he's got Deputy Detention and he's got Teferi, and those cards are good here, absolutely. But your goal is build a battlefield like he did, and then when Matias plays Root Snare, you counter it. Or you counter Wilderness Reclamation, or you counter Nexus of Fate, and you get your opponent into a no-win situation. But with only there being one counterspell in the sideboard, I think this next game is going to look a lot like the first one, except for this time, Lee's on the play.
So let's see if Lee can get lucky and find that one counter spell that he can fire for the opportune moment and hopefully take care of the life total of Matias Leveratto. But excellently played there. He got himself out of a serious pickle because if he hadn't found all that string of cards, Lee would have had him dead long ago.
Now, don't let me sell these blue cards short. Deputy Detention does have targets. It can take care of Narset, it can take care of Tamiyo, and of course the very powerful Wilderness Reclamation. And we all know how good Teferi is against this deck, of course,
yes.
because if Teferi had been out there, Wilderness Reclamation would have looked rather silly. But Teferi is also just a one-of in the sideboard. So if you are Lee, you're on the play this game, and this is the game you, of course, have to get to keep your dreams alive, but you just need to have an aggressive start, and that's exactly what this hand is.
This looks fantastic. We've got the blue source, we've got 3 1-drops, and the Venerated Loxodon. Taking a look at the other side of the board, we've got Nexus, Paradise Druid, Wilderness Reclamation, and Biogenic Ooze. We've seen quite a bit of Ooze this weekend, haven't we?
Now, I am a little surprised to see these creatures in after sideboard. Now, if I'm Matias and I felt that Lee had a lot of counterspells after sideboard, that makes some sense. Let's mix it up a little bit. But with only 1 Disdainful Stroke, I am a touch surprised to see Biogenic Ooze in after sideboard. Paradise Druid makes a lot of sense to me. You want to be able to accelerate when you're on the draw and take the initiative back.
So we're going to see the Venerated Loxodon being convoked out by these creatures, getting the additional 1/1 counters on them. Search for his Canter, the draw for Matias. Just taking a second there to decide what we're gonna do. What should we run out first? Search for his Canter, as we've seen this weekend, a very, very powerful card.
This does strike me as a situation where you want to use all of your mana. You play Wilderness Reclamation, you get to untap your lands. You don't get to do anything with your untapped lands this go around, unfortunately.
Ooh.
But you do set yourself up very nicely for the next turn with Biogenic Ooze.
This is going to be rather painful, isn't it?
It very well could be. The question you have to ask yourself if you're Lee is, do you want to play Banalish Marshal and then convoke all of your creatures and go for an absolutely enormous attack the following turn? Or do you want to play Banalish Marshal this turn and attack for a pretty healthy chunk on this turn?
I think that's what he's thinking right now.
No matter what happens, the game's not going to end this turn.
No.
So if the game is going to end next turn, it might make some sense to say, Banalish Marshal, use all 5 of my creatures for convoke, Venerated Loxodon, and the next turn, my creatures are all like at least 5 power, and try to kill you that way.
Yeah, I guess. It's a bit of a toss-up either way, because you're like, yes, I can swing through and get you down to, what is it, 3 life? My maths is probably horrible. Or do I wait and try and kill you the next turn? I don't like this. Let's flippity-flop the Adunto first fort and get in. Get you down to 3. Oh. Blast Zone can deal with 3 creatures on... No, only the 2. Only the 2, because the tokens do not have a converted mana cost. So not the draw that Lee Shi Tian needed.
Yeah, Blasto isn't what the doctor ordered, and in this spot, taking a look at things, Biogenic Ooze isn't going to be enough to create enough blockers. What will probably happen here is there's going to be 2, and then untap plus 4 is 6, and Paradise Druid is 7. That means that Nexus of Fate can be cast this turn. So that's good.
So he's going to have to find something to help Mattia to stave off this white weenie attack. What do we got?
I mean, Search for his Count is going to have to be working overtime here, folks.
Blink of an eye. Also probably not that great right now.
It's not the best. It's not the best, it's not the worst. If you play Biogenic Ooze, that gives you 2 more blockers. That gives you a total of 3 blockers against 5 creatures. And then Blink of an Eye can bounce something, but that means that 1 creature gets through. Your smallest creature on the battlefield is a 3-power creature, so that would likely be lethal.
Yeah, we've got that flyer in the air, so that's going unanswered at the moment. Look at him counting. It's like, do I have lethal here? What can Matias pull out of the hat here in his bag of Nexus tricks?
Okay, well, I'll take this back here briefly. So another thing that can happen is we can talk about Blast Zone and its ability to kill one casting cost creature. So that's Sky Marcher, Aspirant, and Law Rune Enforcer. So that 1 card takes care of 2 permanents. That also gives you 3 blockers against 3 creatures as well. And then Blink of an Eye can also work itself into the equation. So we're not done just yet.
Not anywhere near it. Blast Zone. Going kablooey, blowing up the flyer and the Law Rune Enforcer, so no tappy taps for you, little one.
This is also notable, too, because the sizing of these oozes is actually quite nice. We might see a double block with both oozes on Venerated Loxodon and then bouncing a Banalish Marshal, and then the Paradise Druid jumps in front of the 3/3 that would then be reduced to a 2/2. And so some favorable exchanges could take place there. We'll see how Matias wants to set it up, but he's very much alive right now.
He is indeed. Lee Shi Tian just saying, please just hit, please just land, just let me hit you, players. I've been in this spot many times. Oh, come on, little weenies. You can do it. You can do it. That is what Lee Shi Tian is telling his army of an elephant, a Benelish Marshal, and a vampire. Yes. Okay, double block on the Venerated Loxodon with a token and the Paradise Druid.
Yeah, you can see Lee Shi is a little surprised by this block. And so what's happening
It all
here
makes sense.
Yeah, this all makes sense. You know, you get the token of the Paradise Druid in front of the Venerated Loxodon. Biogenic Ooze, the actual one, is here to block the token. The token's going to become a 2/2 now, so the real Biogenic Ooze is going to live. That's important because now Ooze can pump out more Oozes and start to really, really clutter up this battlefield.
So Benelish Marshal back in hand. We have another Venerated Loxodon as well. Big Papa Ooze, though, remains and can start creating a little baby Oozes and just clog up this board to no end.
There's a real problem here for Lee. As you take a look at his hand and his battlefield, he can only do one thing this turn. If he plays Benelish Marshal, he can't convoke Venerated Loxodon. He's a mana short. If he plays Venerated Loxodon, he can't activate Adanto, the first for it. If he plays Benelish Marshal, he doesn't have enough mana to activate Adanto, the first for it. So all he can do is actually place one thing on the battlefield. It's his choice between Loxodon, Marshal, or a 1/1 Vampire token.
Yeah.
And when you've got Mattias over there making Oozes every single turn, at least 2, one on his main phase and then one from the Untapped Wilderness Reclamation, you're not keeping up.
Not at all. The Oozes are certainly far more impressive than the little 1/1 vampire creature that Adanto, the first fort, creates. So this is a bit of a tricky situation for Lee to get out of. Feels very much like Mattias is in the driver's seat in this matchup.
And every turn that we continue to take Alias is 2 Oozes.
Yep.
It's also a search for his Kanta trigger that gets you closer to transforming that into Kanta the Sunken Ruin. We know how good that is with Wilderness Reclamation. And that's a draw step every turn to get closer to Tamiyo, Nexus of Fate, so on and so forth. So initially, when I was surprised to see Biogenic Ooze, looks pretty darn good to me.
Oh yeah, this is looking very, very good for Matias Leveratto. If you're just joining us, this is the final match of the day. These two players are fighting for the final spot in the top 4 of Mythic Championship 3. We've got a bunch of Uzis, and we have a little itty-bitty vampire.
That was an enormous draw in
This
Sky
is a
Marcher Aspirant because that is a flyer.
Sugar.
And in combination with Benelish Marshal, it is a 3-power flyer.
Ooh, so Matias has to find something, and quickly.
And now here's Venerated Loxodon. So Lee has done a great job of reassembling a battlefield, but the most important card out here is Sky Marcher Aspirant because of flying. And so now Matias needs to find something to solve that problem.
Go. What is it? It's an opt.
All right, that's a redraw.
All right. Take another look. What is it? To the bottom, to the top. Come on, show us. What is it? What is it? There we go. To the bottom. Wilderness Reclamation. It'll buy you another turn.
Obviously
or 2.
great in multiples, and what this can do is this can team
maybe
up
not.
with the Memorial of Genius.
Yep. So all the land, empty that hand. Lee Shi Tian giving a nod, acknowledging that there's going to be a bunch of ooze and 2 cards drawn off of a Memorial to Genius. Look at him mathing there.
So I think if you are Mattias, you activate the Memorial now.
Yeah.
Actually, it looks like he's going to float all of this mana.
No, no, no. ZZ. Undo. Tense moments here.
Super, super important.
I'm actually nervous for him. What is this? Memorial to Genius.
2 draws.
What do we got?
We are
Callistus
alive.
Missile.
We are alive.
All right, we're good. We're good. Callistus Missile will get rid of that Sky Marcher for a turn.
I believe we are still alive. No, that's
No.
sorcery.
Sorcery. Yes,
Sorcery,
you're
not
right.
instant.
You're right.
We are
You're
not
right.
alive. It is not blink of an eye. It's
Gosh,
Callous
darn it.
Dismissal. Nope.
All right. Getting
We are
duped
not
there
alive.
by the.
It is the wrong bounce spell.
It's the wrong bounce
It is the
spell.
wrong bounce spell.
But
oh,
you know
that is
what?
brutal.
That is brutal. But you know what it gets? It means we get to see a game 3 between 2 excellent players. Both have fought and clawed their way through to this position right now, and they are not giving it up at all. So I'm glad we get to see a game 3. Personally, I bet you they're not.
Well, it's way more stressful for them
Oh, yeah, for
than
sure.
it is for us.
I'm stressing out here, though. I'm just like, yeah.
So a couple of notes before this game begins. If you're Mattias, this is exactly where you want to be. Game 3, all of it on the line. You are in a pretty difficult matchup, but you were on the play. You saw what happened in Game 1 when he was on the play. It's a great spot to be in. You're
Yep.
against an opponent that doesn't have much counter magic or interaction for you. They have 1 Teferi, 1 Disdainful Stroke. Those are really all the cards that you care about. Hopefully you can dodge both of those blue cards. Again, Deputy Detention isn't bad, but it's not the end of the world. And we'll see if his deck comes together.
Taking a look at the opening hands, snap-ish keep from both players. Decent looking starts. We've got Search for His Canter turn 2 for Mattias. We've got 2 1 mana drops and the History of Benalia for Lee Shi Tian. We're going to start things off with the Dauntless Bodyguard. That'll get to work on Mattias's life total. Paradise Druid,
really
his
good
draw.
draw.
Yeah, that's great. Let's get rampant, shall we?
Yeah, I like Paradise Druid into potentially Search for His Canter and Callous Dismissal on turn number 3. You've already got a Nexus of Fate to work with. I think probably your best draw next turn is Wilderness Reclamation, but Tamiyo would be a totally fine consolation prize as well. So this is not a bad start.
Dauntless Bodyguard's going to swing in here, and he's taken the trade with the Paradise Druid.
I don't mind that either, truthfully.
Legion's Landing running out, and then the Hallowed Fountain following it up. Not untapped. It's okay. We don't need to ping ourselves in the face there. All right, so we've got Search for His Canter. We've got Callous Dismissal. We can kick back that token if we feel like it, but are we going to do it? Or are we sending back?
Yeah, I'm curious if we're going to kick back this token or if we are going to play Search for His Canter, because getting that legendary enchantment on the battlefield is so powerful right now. You're not underneath that much pressure. It's obviously a very, very good card, but it looks like Callous Dismissal is just going to slow Lee down even more.
So we got now the 1/1 zombie dude. We're going to run out the History of Benalia, start making knights. Let's see if we can apply some pressure.
Lee needs to
onto
draw
Mattias.
a creature or a spell or
Yeah.
something that does something like right now.
That's not it. That's not it.
Nope.
That is a handy land, a landy hand. And we're going to swing in for 2 with the knight. Oh, boy. Lee needs to draw something, and soon, or
Yes.
Mattias is going to run away with this very quickly.
This is not the kind of deck that you want to give time when you don't have a lot of counter magic to draw towards.
Search for His Canter going to work, getting rid of the silly cards like land. Who needs land? Finding an opt on the top of the library for Mattias.
I like a main phase opt here. See if
Yeah.
you can find one of your 4-mana spells, Wilderness Reclamation or Tamiyo in this spot.
Let's fire it off, see what he gets. Scry to bottom and drawing another Hinterland Harbor. Both players flooding a little bit here.
They are.
Lauren Enforce is not bad, it's not great. Swinging in for 8 points of damage. I think this little token is going to meet his end.
Yeah, I think this is a good time for a block. Fall down to 14. Give yourself as much time as possible because these creatures aren't that large yet. Both players are flooding out badly. Search for His Canter gives, I think, Mattias a bit of an advantage in this spot.
Yeah, just being able to put something to the bottom. I think we see a Tamiyo on the top of the library there. Just help him dig a little bit more.
I'm interested in a Tamiyo. If I'm Mattias in this spot, I think I play Tamiyo and I'm naming Wilderness Reclamation.
I think that will be the play. Let's see what Mattias decides to call. Taking a look in the graveyard, is there anything I want to bring back? I don't think so at this point.
Because right now, Tamiyo, if you plus it, its loyalty will go from 5 to 6, which means it would live through the attack as things currently stand, which I think is also important.
Lee needs to focus on this Planeswalker, right? It's not a case of I'm just going to hit you in the face.
Yeah, I mean, because the pressure isn't enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's just 5 points, 14 and 9, 9 to 5. I just don't, excuse me, 9 to 4. I just don't think it's enough. Though, again, we're going to see Callous Dismissal. That's going to bounce a token, and then this gives you a blocker, and that's not too bad either.
Not too shabby. Again, another Plains for Lee Shi Tian. That's not great. So many lands in the hand of Lee Shi Tian. Callous Dismissal, little token is going bye-bye.
This still keeps Tamiyo on the battlefield. This still gives you the ability to plus it. Also gives you a better look with Search for His Canter as well, so you're working with more information.
We can play Nexus of Fate this turn, and there's
Bang.
the Wilderness Reclamation.
There you go. There it is.
Ruh-roh. That's a ruh-roh.
He has just told Lee he is going to cast Wilderness Reclamation. The worst sentence to hear if you're
Yes.
Lee right now.
Yes. Oh, there's nothing that Lee can do at instant speed anyway, is there?
Not right now. Again, he's
Well,
got that one
he
copy of
does
Disdainful
have,
Stroke.
yes, he does have that, but oof. So Tamiyo is going to dig for Nexus of Fate. Let's see if we can string together the take another turn button. Wilderness Reclamation untapping. All the lands.
And you see him floating the mana right now for the
yeah.
Nexus 2. So this might be a repeat of what we saw in game number 1 when Matias was on the play. He's got his pieces in place: a Wilderness Reclamation, a Searcherous Kanta, and a Tamio that can start plussing and naming a specific card.
And Lee is just going to have to hope that Matias whiffs here, because he has no way out of this at the moment. He's just going to sit back and watch as Matias digs through his deck with Tamio, with Wilderness Reclamation, with Memorial to Genius, with as Can to the Sunken Rune, which is now flipped as well, finding another Wilderness Reclamation. This is going to be a bit rough for Lee Shi Tian.
This is really, really bad news for Lee right now. Another copy of Wilderness Reclamation, and the difference between this game and the last one too, except ignoring the flooding that's happening here from Lee, is that if Matias, fizzled,
yeah,
then he was dead.
Yeah.
Right. If he fizzles now, it's like, all right, I guess I'm going to 10. Right, so he's even still alive. He is in the driver's seat here, and what was such a brutal loss last round to Brad Nelson gets paired against arguably one of his worst matchups in the room. I think he's going to eke this one out.
I think so too. I think he has prayed to the magic gods and just been like, all right, please help me out here. Let me find all my pieces.
No.
We have 2 Nexus of Fates,
boy.
and that might just be the writing on the wall. I think we have just found our final player in the top 4 of Mythic Championship 3 here in Las Vegas. What a story for Matias Leveratto.
This deck choice was very, very risky, but he has demonstrated over the course of many, many rounds here this weekend that he is very adept at playing Simic Nexus. I love his build of the deck. He's incorporated some new cards, most notably Narset, Parter of Veils, which looked very, very good in game 1. He's taken some unorthodox lines that have really worked out very well for him. His use of Callous Dismissal has been excellent in this match, and I think he's going to continue to activate his Kanta, get himself deeper into his deck, and work himself closer to a win. It's been a lot of fun to watch him do his thing.
It has been, and he has one of the best stories here, relatively unknown amongst this pool of insanely good Magic players. So, yeah, let's just see how many turns Lee Shi Tian is willing to sit through, sees the yikes.
No
and
more, that is
concession.
it!
That is
Unbelievable!
it. Congratulations, Matias Leveratto. You are through to day 3. The final of the top 4. All lands. All lands, Lee Shi Tian tells Matias Leveratto. Congratulations to him. Incredible.
This is notable for so many different reasons. First of all, Matias is the definition of a challenger for this tournament, right? Not a member of the MPL, working himself through Arena to qualify for this tournament, getting here, one of the lesser-known players playing an unorthodox deck that only 3 players played on the weekend, playing it expertly, losing a very, very tough match to Brad Nelson last round, which he would have already been through, that I think he would love to replay if he had the opportunity, then getting paired against a Hall of Famer
I know, right?
in a horrible matchup and playing beautifully to win. It's a joy to watch.
But don't cry for Lee Argentina, because he will be back. He is perfectly capable of finding himself in this same spot. So best of luck to Lee Shi Tian in future tournaments. But the hero of the moment is Matias Leveratto. Absolutely incredible games, absolutely incredible runs so far, and we're going to hear from him right now.
That's right. I'm here with Matias. Oh my goodness, what an incredible win. You came into this, people are calling you the underdog, and now you are one of the 4 players heading into day 3 for your chance to get to see the World Championship and $100,000. What are you thinking right now?
I don't know, a lot of things. Like, this is amazing. I was so happy to make top 16, and then to find out that the top 4 challengers qualify for the next Mythic Championship Arena. So, like, it's a free roll from now on. I'm super happy.
I think you probably played definitely the most games to get here in recent months as a qualifier through Arena. What was that process like?
I really enjoyed because I really like the deck, so it was fun. No, I don't know.
Okay, talk to me about this last matchup with Lee Shi Tian. What were you thinking? Because this was not the ideal matchup deck-wise, but it worked out in your favor.
It's not an easy matchup, but since he's not playing Dovin's Veto and Cyborg, I feel comfortable with the Root Snare and Tamio. They do a great combination. Like, if you have Reclamation and Root Snare and also a Tamilio, you'll probably gonna be okay.
Well, Matias Leveratto, you have piloted the Simic Nexus beautifully. It's been so great to watch. Everybody always likes to cheer for an underdog, so we're excited to see what you do tomorrow. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
And thanks, you guys. Stick around. We have Maria and Paul who are going to talk you through what's happening tomorrow.
Hey, thanks so much, Becca. Paul Chian here joining me at the news desk. Paul, what an amazing day of Magic here at Mythic Championship 3.
Oh yeah, there were just so many incredible matches to remember, and just the storylines coming through into this tournament. I mean, Kai, the return of Kai, making it into the top 4 with, I mean, probably the most epic match of the tournament so far.
Absolutely.
With just, you know, top deck after top deck to get there. Sure, he played very well to get to where he needed to, but you know, in order to make it to the top 4, you also need some favorable draws, and he kind of combined the two to get to where he's at now.
And you know what's interesting too is Kai 10 years ago was his last top finish, okay? So he's
been a while.
He's just before my time playing Magic, and now here he is of this time once again making a run here at this tournament. Really cool stuff. Make sure you don't miss it. Tune in tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on twitch.tv/magic. We have all the action from the top 4 tomorrow. $100,000 on the line for the winner, as well as a spot in the World Championship. But right now, Paul, we have a chance to reveal the bracket and the matchups for tomorrow in our top 4.
Exciting.
All right, let's take a look. Here is your top 4 bracket here at Mythic Championship 3. Shahar Shenhar will be up against the underdog, Matias Leveratto, and then a matchup for the ages, Brad Nelson versus Kai Buddha.
Yeah, and starting with that top bracket, I mean, Matias Leveratto, you know, said his worst matchup is going to be mono red. Shahar's on mono red.
There it is.
So this is going to be brutal for him because this is maybe one of the most polarizing matchups in Standard right now. So he can't be excited, but at the same time, he just beat what we consider to be a bad matchup already, so maybe he can run it back.
Yeah, there he is, Matias Leveratto, the MCQ winner on Arena from Argentina. Started playing at 12 years old, and here he is playing somebody else who started playing Magic pretty young, Shahar Shenhar, 2-time world champion on mono red. Brad Nelson, Kai Buddha, Esper Hero versus Esper Hero in almost the exact same deck here, Paul.
Yeah, and the thing is, Kai, you know, he's one of those players that he's not going to be intimidated by anybody, right?
No.
I mean, he's one of the greatest of all time, and he's going up against Brad Nelson, who's also one of the best ever, especially when it comes to Standard. And Kai already was able to dispatch of Brian Brown-Duin, who is basically playing Brad Nelson's exact same 75. So he's very familiar with the matchup, and, you know, it'll honestly just come down to those little edges, and sometimes just, you know, who draws a little bit better. Well,
you couldn't have asked for a more stacked top 4, but to preview our top 4 coming tomorrow, let's go to day 9.
My God, my heart is still pounding from that final match. We had 16 players who started the day, and we are now down to 4. 3 gods of the game and 1 newcomer. These 4 players will be playing tomorrow for $100,000 and a chance to win that invite to the World Championship. Yeah, you're allowed to be happy. You're moving on to tomorrow. All 4 of these players here will be seeded into a brand new double elimination bracket. That action kicks off at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern, and 5 p.m. if you're in Europe. Look forward to seeing you bright and early tomorrow. Cheers.